Paul Colthirst. Paul Colthirst is a 1988 Manning's grad and a colonel in the U.S. Army. Please welcome Paul Colthirst to the True Blue Lounge. And as always, like, subscribe, and tell a friend. And if you're unable to like and subscribe, get a young person. They'll show you how to. Without further ado, let's talk to Paul. Hi, this is Roger Smith of the True Blue Lounge, and today my guest is Paul Colthirst. Paul is a 1988 graduate of the Manning School, and Paul is a colonel in the United States Army. Welcome, Paul Colthirst.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Cool. All right, the pleasure's all mine. You know, you're the man with the busy schedule in the great state of Hawaii. You're probably up from 4 a.m. your time, so you know you're doing things that other people can't or refuse to do. You know, nice
All right.
discipline. Yeah, man.
Yes.
So, Paul, tell me, whereabouts in Westmoreland are you from?
So I'm from a place called Deans Valley, which is just between Wheaton and Waterworks. So
Wheaton and Waterworks.
we,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. You know, I don't know. Well, I know what Wheaton and I know Waterworks. So, you know, Galloway, you take the left and go
Right.
up the hill.
So actually, so now we're getting closer. So it's between Galloway and Waterworks. So that's where we are, Deans Valley District.
Okay. Cool.
So if you've heard of the ice factory.
Yes, definitely.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I'm right there at the ice factory.
So we actually have to turn. So you're not going up the hill to Wheaton. You're turning right like you're going down to Ferris.
Well, Ferris, you're too far. So if you know where the ice factory is, you make a left. There's a lane that's called Thompson Lane.
Okay.
So you have the Deans Valley housing scheme.
Uh huh.
You pass the Deans Valley housing scheme, and then you make a left. You know, it's almost like your first left
Okay.
after you pass the housing scheme, and then that's Thompson Lane, and a couple houses down from there.
Okay. So did you go primary school in that area?
I went to primary school at Unity Primary School, the
Same
great
as me,
Unity.
man. The only
Yeah,
school. Yeah. So who was your
only school.
lessons class teacher?
So I had lessons with Miss Cox.
Uh huh.
So I was on, first shift, second shift, but it was lessons with Miss Cox and Miss Dobbs
Dobson.
and
Okay.
Dobson. Yeah,
Were they um were they very heavy-handed with the leather when you were there?
not with me, no. Never got it. As a matter of fact, I was probably one of the only Unity students who never get beaten yet, not
Why
even
is
in the
that?
class.
Were they beating people or they did stop them time there?
No, they were. They were. I remember there was one time, we were doing a math problem,
Uh-huh.
and all the students, went up to the board and they were doing the math problem, and they were getting it wrong. So, she was, I think it was Miss Dobson. She just coming down the line, looking at your answers, and then you're getting beaten, and or getting the leather strap. And for some reason, I just was able to get the answer. And she said, a war. And then she went to the next person. So I kept, missing it.
See, you're lucky. You're lucky. I used to give a lot of trouble at school, so it wasn't it was one of them things for me, you know.
Yeah.
So do you remember people that went to school with you in Unity that you still keep in contact with?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. Edward Richards is one of my best friends there. We used to run together. Even I remember um, even at primary school, we got selected by Manning's to go to I think it was the JC games or at least to run for Westmoreland at either I think it was the Mutual Life Junior Games or the JC Games or something like that. But we were just two Unity students to have been selected by Manning's to go to that track meet.
Wow. And that's what, 100 meters sprint?
That was 100 meters and 4x1.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
So the class was showing from there, yeah, you were onto big things. Good, good. S-
Yes, yes, yes.
So just to see cognitively where you are, because as you get older, Paul, some of us fall off. Do you remember five guys, five girls from your first form class in Mannings?
Yes, yes, I remember quite a few. You're gonna put me on the spot right now. First and last name, but yeah, you actually interviewed DK, Donovan, and then you had Omar Simpson, and you have Donovan Rutherford, you have Delroy Chamberlain, and so yeah, so quite a few.
What about the girls? You remember any girls in your class?
Yes, 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 yes. We had Elaine James, Simone Pinkney, Doreen Chance, Colleen Noble, Karen Martin. Yeah, with quite a few. Wendy Gavin. Great individuals. Yeah.
It's nice, man. Your brain on par. You're good. You're good. So are you a iPhone guy, Android guy, Samsung?
Straight iPhone watch, iPad. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The
they
whole
got
family,
you.
the whole family, the
They
whole
got you.
family.
They got you. That's
They
nice.
got me. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Cool, cool, cool. Can you cook?
I do.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I cook assortments of things. My wife is a great cook. So because of that, I don't do as much. But when I do, curry chicken, pork. I know some people don't like pork, but I do a very good jerk pork, rice and yeah, you name the Jamaican stuff. I cook that easily.
Okay, okay, cool. So, talk to me about some early kind of vibes when it comes to Mannings for you. Are there any teachers that were very influential in who you are today from Mannings that you could have said, poured into you to make you as confident and as brilliant as you are?
I don't know about brilliant, but I do know the challenge. So we have Miss Mullings, who's now Miss Boyd. Very instrumental in me being who I am today. She used to teach biology. And I remember when I left Manning's and I completed my first degree, I came back to Manning's a couple months after graduation, and I wanted to teach. I said, "Hey, I'm coming back to Jamaica. I want to teach." And she said, "Well, she recommends that I do a master's degree, before coming back." So I was a little bit disappointed. So I went back a couple of months later. I went back and hadn't returned. So she was one of the instrumental ones that encouraged me to go further. So
So, do you remember going to lunch at school at all?
I do, yes.
Who are you
I
going with and where are you going?
So I normally would go with sometimes I would go with DK, sometimes I'll go with Boogie. Most of the time it was with Boogie, Edward Richards.
Okay.
We used to eat, believe it or not, half a bread.
DK did say this.
Yeah,
if
yeah, we used to eat half a bread. I think it was the $4 bread, and we break it in half, and we would go into the back and sit on flour or sugar or what have you, and just eat bread.
wow, hot bread.
It hot bread,
Okay,
straight out of the oven. Hot bread.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. And that was
Yes.
at Brown's Bakeries, yeah?
Yes. That was at
Yeah.
Brown's Breakfast. Yeah.
Marva Brown was in my class. That was one of the sisters. I think there was Marie Brown, her older sister,
Hmm.
and there was Marcia Brown as well. So
Yes.
those were, I'm going to say, Marva was an 82 graduate. Marie was an 81, and probably Marcia was an 80 graduate. So just
Mm.
for perspective. So were you in
Yeah.
cadets at all?
I was not. No. The extracurricular activities. The sports. Football. Quiz team. Science and science club and and dabbled around in chess a little bit, but I was not on the chess team, but just developing in chess. But
All right. So before we leave, you're gonna have to give me a chess.com ID. If you don't have one, we have to go play a little bit. I'm a
yes,
fun chess player, but just to keep me cognitively sharp as may fall off as well, you know.
okay.
All right. So Paul, tell me how is it? How do you get from your graduation in '88 to be on this sunny island of Hawaii, and I'm gonna say Honolulu, Oahu. So
Oahu,
just
Honolulu, yes.
walk us through what you can tell us and what you're up to now, sir.
Okay, so when I left Manning's, I actually left, yeah, as you mentioned, in '88. Went to the United States and went to Georgia Southern University. Um, I studied biology and minored in chemistry. So after I graduated back in '93, because I went there '89, graduated '93. Um, I went to a movie, and the movie was Outbreak, and that movie was about it starred Dustin Hoffman and Cuba Gooding Jr. And both of them were army pilots, but they were scientists, and they were chasing a monkey because the monkey had Ebola. So it was this whole Ebola virus type movie. It was a big blockbuster, but that inspired me. And I said, you know what? That's what I wanted to do, because a lot of the things they were talking about, the zoonotic parasites and all of that, that was exactly what I had studied in undergrad. And so, believe it or not, I left the movie theater, went to the army recruiting, and I told them, "Hey, that's what I want to do." So obviously, I wasn't a U.S. citizen or anything like that, so I couldn't necessarily, become an officer or even, do that level type stuff. But they said, "Hey, we can get you into the army with a green card, and you will be able to do that type of research." So that's exactly what I did. Joined.
So let me interrupt you just a sec. So how did you get from JA to the States, and what part of the States did you go to, and what age were you at the time?
So I was 17 when I left. Yeah, just turned 17. Went to Atlanta, Georgia. So, and yeah, went to Atlanta, and yeah, just attended Georgia Southern, which was in Statesboro, Georgia, which is about 50 miles from Savannah, Georgia. Most people, actually 50 miles from where DK lives. So that's where I actually went to school, was Georgia Southern, Statesboro, Georgia.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So continue. So you, what did you
So yeah,
study?
so studied biology. I majored in biology, minored in chemistry. So and that was the type of subjects that I did at Manning's, was really the science subjects, the ad maths and the physics and chemistry. So
So were
very.
you brilliant at Manning's?
I was studious. I was a good student. I wouldn't classify myself as brilliant. I did a lot of extracurricular activities, So my brother was brilliant, right? My brother was very brilliant, and obviously, the teachers expected you to be like your older brother. So,
Okay.
I was studious. I did my work. Put it that way.
You know, the humility is coming through. You know, when I talk to you guys, it really rings through. But maybe it's a Jamaican thing, where Jamaicans are relatively humble. Do you agree with that?
I agree, but you know what? I think we've always grown up with this phrase, self-praise is no recommendation,
Yes.
right? And sometimes I do think that is a hindrance for us in moving forward. Because one of the toughest things that we do is, hey, tell me about yourself, talk about yourself, and then if you start listing your accolades, then, they say, well, you're bossy, you're this, you're that. So yeah, I think the safest place is the humility part of it.
Yeah, but I noticed in the states, all when them not have the accolades, them a talk about it,
Exactly.
and if you don't open your mouth, you'll be the guy in the corner, and they'll be like, what's he good for? You know what I mean? So
Well, and that is something that I think that coming up from the islands, we have to overcome that because again, we are we're taught, self-praise is no recommendation. We are taught to be seen and not heard, and other nations, developed nations, they don't abide by that, and for us to be truly successful, we have to come out of that shell,
closed
and
mouths don't get fed.
it does not,
Yep, yep,
does
yep.
not.
So after you finished your studies in Savannah, what did you do after that?
So I worked when I graduated. I had a job at a environmental company called Ecotech, and that used more of my chemistry background. And I did a lot of analysis, oil analysis, soil analysis, and did pretty well. It paid well enough where I was in Jamaica every other weekend. I would fly from Atlanta to Jamaica, things like that. But that was short lived, and that's one reason why I went into the military is because I was looking for something more stable, and just greater opportunities. And then after watching that movie, I knew exactly what I wanted to do at
Okay,
that
okay.
point. Yeah.
So how long have you been in the U.S. Army now?
So I came in '95. So that's what, 31 years.
Wow.
It's 31 years. I would say 31 years affiliated because I also went to Meharry Medical College. So that was 4 years. And obviously they subtract 4 years from that 31. So on active duty, it's 27, 31 affiliated. But
Okay.
they did pay for medical school.
Okay. And what did you do at medical school?
So I went to Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee, and I studied dentistry. Graduated with a DDS, Doctor in Dental Surgery, and then came back into the military, obviously through the scholarship back in 2002, and then did an advanced education in general dentistry, and then did a specialty training in dental public health, biostatistics, and epidemiology at the University of Iowa.
Before you go on, I'm gonna bring some Rogerism in it. So, do you have an
Okay.
electric toothbrush?
If I have electric toothbrush, I do not.
Okay,
Believe
use
it
a
or not.
manual one.
I use manual.
All right. What about the water pick?
I do not. I use the floss.
Okay, okay. All right. You're gonna have to talk to me a little bit about this. Why are you not going for the electric toothbrush and the water pick, which is
Okay.
supposed to be really efficient?
Yeah. So, for example, the electric toothbrush, that's more of a commercialized thing, right? Because it really was designed for people with arthritis, right?
Okay.
Because if you notice, the handle is very, big, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it really was designed for. But because of, commercialization, and then they said, hey, everyone has it. But nothing beats what God has given you, right? It does amazing things. The water pick, it has its uses, but if you have these small picks, the floss, that works just as well, and rinse, so the old tried and true way, is still probably the superior way to do it.
Oh, nice, nice to hear from an expert.
Yeah.
So, being in the U.S. military, you know, as far as culturally, not growing up in the United States, what was that like for you in the early stages? And how were you able to move up in rank to colonel? What sort of time would you say the amount of time it took you was normal, or would you say you fast tracked it?
I think it's a combination of fast tracking it. It's also the types of jobs that you have because I my first job out when I graduated from the 1 year advanced general dentistry education. I volunteered to be with a infantry unit. It was a new unit that was being put together. It's called a striker brigade. They were positioned in Alaska. So here's a guy from Jamaica then volunteering to be in the striker infantry unit, light brigade unit,
In cold
going
Alaska.
in the cold Alaska where it's, minus 40, minus 60 degrees sometimes, right? Then deploying from there to Iraq for a period of time. So again, a lot of things, and I would say, success is strategic. So you have to, number one, be willing. Number two, you have to have some type of strategy behind what you're doing. So as you mentioned, closed mouth don't get fed. You have to look for these opportunities because if everyone is on the same path, well, no one really stands out. So what do you do? We all have the same skills. We all have the same physical prowess, I would say. But what makes you stand out from the rest? So it's really those assignments that you select and how well you do in those assignments. So a lot of the lessons we've learned, growing up in Jamaica, was you were able to use those lessons for advancement.
So, so do you have any siblings?
I do, yes.
How many?
I have one brother, two sisters.
One brother, two sisters. Were your parents strict?
When it came to education, absolutely, yes. Yeah,
Was
they were
your
strict when it came to education.
Okay? Would you say your dad was a very strict man?
Yeah, he was strict. He expected us to do well. Didn't talk much, but when he talked, you definitely listened.
Right.
My mother, she was a nurse at Savannah Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So, you dare not, you not dare not, you just didn't want to disappoint her because, you kind of see her working schedule and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, they were very focused on education.
So help out the layman that's not as in the military. So you went in, so you wouldn't have had to go in as a private. Did you start out as an officer because you went to college?
No, so because I wasn't a citizen, I started off as what is called a specialist, which is an E4. So that's like, two grades above a private.
Okay.
So you're not able to become an officer. So once I joined, I was actually doing biological research and autopsy research, aviation accident investigation. So that was what I was trained for.
When you say
That was
autopsy, you mean crash plane or people who are
yeah, more so rotary, so helicopter crashes. So
okay.
we did those investigations, and we did. I assisted, I should say, I assisted in those autopsies. And so that is what actually led me into medical or dental. So that I wasn't really sure which one I wanted, just because of that experience. So what I really did, I took the entrance exam to for medical and for dental. I took it back to back. Let's say one was on a Tuesday, and I don't remember the days. One was on a Tuesday, one was on a Wednesday. So I did those entrance exams back to back, and said I really didn't care which one I got. Science is science, and I applied to medical school, I applied to dental school, and I got into both. And I chose dentistry over medical because of the lifestyle. And, as cynical as this may sound, I did not want to work weekends and I didn't want to work holidays. I wanted almost equivalent income, but didn't want to work those days. And dentistry was the one that provided that pathway. So that's why I did that.
Okay, okay. So, from that E4 grade that you spoke about, the specialist, to where you are now, what are the steps?
So,
And when
so
I
you
say
have
steps, I mean what are the classifications?
So really, it's two different tracks. So your E4, which or your specialist, the next rank to that would have been a sergeant. So if you think of two pillars, so one is a enlisted and the other one is a commissioned officer. So one is non-commissioned officer and one is commissioned officer. So when I was an E4, that was the non-commissioned officer pathway. When I immediately got the scholarship, think about it as though I jumped from one pillar to another pillar. So I jumped from non-commissioned to a commissioned officer. So I jumped. So within an hour, after signing the paperwork, you are now a commissioned officer as a second lieutenant or lieutenant, as they would say. And you go through school, 4 years of dental school, and after graduation, you are now a captain. And then 6 years after being a captain, 5 to 6 years after being a captain, you're a major. And 5 to 6 years after a major, you're a lieutenant colonel. After the lieutenant colonel, now you're a colonel. Now, after that, whatever success looks like, the next rank after colonel is a brigadier general, all the way up to a four-star general. So the pathways they're really two different pathways. So basically, I jumped from the non-commissioned officer specialist into the commissioned rank that now makes you eligible for a general.
Wow. For those watching, they probably, all I'm saying to you, it didn't pass me the fact that your level in the U.S. Army is as high as it is, because once you said you're like two lower than a four-star general, then I'm like, oh wow, I'm kind of
Yeah.
getting where you are.
So
Wow,
if I were to be promoted now, that would be a brigadier general, basically.
wow.
Yeah.
So, another Rogerism here. You're gonna hear it every now and again. So, what is it about you that the whole victim mentality and color didn't seem to hold you back? What is it? Because if you talk to a lot of people of our hue, they will tell you about the obstacles. They will not tell you about the stones that you step on to get to where you are.
Y- You know, being raised in Jamaica, as I mentioned, my mother is a nurse. So being raised in Jamaica, especially coming from a black country, who do we see? We see, black doctors, black lawyers, teachers, policemen, judges. I mean, your society. So you know that all of what you want to achieve, engineering, banker, what have you, it's feasible. You can do it, and the question is, well, if they can do it, why I can't do it? So coming to the United States, yeah, you're faced with some racial issues, obviously, but that doesn't stop you from being who you can be. That's one. Two, also having a very supportive family. I've been married 31 years, and so I have a very supportive spouse. But even if I didn't have a supportive spouse, my grandparents, parents, aunts, very supportive. Even my friends, from Manning's, they very very supportive. I would tell you this, and as I'm thinking, when I was going to Iraq, for some reason, a friend of mine, Devin Rutherford, who went to Unity and to Manning's together, he's a pastor. Out of the blues, he called me, you know, and we were just talking, and and it's not that we hung out while we were at Manning's, we were in the same class, so we were friends, but we didn't really hang out or anything like that. But throughout my time, my year and a half in Iraq, I mean, he was like my spiritual guide. And I think there is a level of comfort to know that you have a support team around you. You have, what I would call either prayer warriors or just warriors, and a loving family. So I think, building that shelter around you is very, very important for you to get to that next level. And so I don't dabble in the victimhood. I dabble in, okay, what do I need to get to the next level? That's the first thing. And let's say I don't get what I want. It's a matter of reflection, introspection. Hey, why did I not get it? Um, could it be color? It could be, but that's not my go-to. What did I do? What did I not do? Um, with my boys, I will tell you this: a very, very intelligent young man. As a matter of fact, my youngest one just, well, not just, he graduated from West Point last year, and that's a very, very difficult school to get into, especially academically. And I tried something out with him. So, for example, when he was in high school and he was taking a test, and let's say he didn't do well on the test, we would sit down and then we will analyze, well, why didn't you not do well on the test? When did you know you have the test? Let's say, leading up to the test, what were you doing? What was your plan for success? And if he was playing video games, if he was doing all of these things, I would say, well, do you think these contributed to you not doing well on the test? And we'll go through that lesson, and so that's how I really assess, you know, um, success and failure. So not necessarily by race or anything like
I
that.
have a pretty similar outlook to yours as well. I don't. I think it's all to do with waiting. When I use the word waiting, I mean race is a little part. There's so many little things. You could not get a job because you just got a bad attitude. You could just be great at what you do. You can be academically bright, but you could just be prickly. You may just not be a nice person, or
True.
you could just not come over well in interviews. But a lot of us I just feel as though it's a cop out to go for race, even if it is. You
Right.
can't, once you put up these barriers, you might as well don't even try, because
Hmm.
mentally you're defeated. So, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Are you religious, and how does religion help you in your day to day?
Yeah, I would say I am. I actually could say that, it's proven, being in the military and being deployed, I've experienced hairy um, um, issues. So I do believe so, and that's an interesting question. I am religious. Do I believe that there's a supreme being? Absolutely. Again, being in the medical field and doing my training, okay, and part of dental training, we have to dissect a cadaver, basically a dead body, and we have that dead body for about 2 semesters, and so we have to learn, from the brain to the toe, and how specific we are made. When you talk about, and I'll just use this term, let's say your facial nerve, right? So it's a five facial nerve that comes off, and they branch at an exact point once it comes out of the fossa, the hole, within the maxilla or the mandible, and that's in all of the cadavers. Somebody had to design that. To me, a Big Bang Theory does not support the diversification of life. You know, the dog is a dog, the cat is a cat, the monkey is a monkey, the bird is a bird, and different types of bird. I can't see a Big Bang theory, so I have to think about it as a supreme being that designed all of this and put it in order, and it is order, you know. So yeah, yeah, there's something out there greater than us that we may not truly comprehend, but there is very, very specific. It's the science, you know, when you even go down to the cellular level, when you study the cell and you think about the Krebs cycles and the ATPs, and I know I'm getting all scientific.
No, no, no.
It it
I'm
it
loving
is
this.
it is so specific. It is so in order, right? That there has to be an intelligent design, you know.
You know
And we
what?
may say God, we say God, right? So it, it could be, I don't know, Allah, it could be whom we say God, but it's a supreme being out there that
You
puts
know,
it in order.
funnily, we actually agree. I just don't call it God or whatever. But yes, something serious is happening or has happened.
Hmm.
Why I don't say God or one of those or one of the other 50,000 gods or 5,000 gods there are, I'm like, well, what is he or his or its purpose and who created it? And I am okay with not knowing. I am okay bowing down to whatever force it is, but I cannot, or we as mankind, in my humble opinion, cannot name it and say what its purpose is in the way I look at it. But I see the brilliance and the design just like you do. And to me
Hmm.
it's a wonder. I wonder if this is a serious simulation going on. Is this kind of AI on steroids? You know, what is
Yeah.
going on? I really don't know. Um, just as much as scientists, maybe not with your accolades, but my appreciation for science is just the same. And I still think, you know, man cannot make man. But soon there's these AI robots are going to be going around charging themselves. They're going to, start learning from themselves and learning from other robots. So who knows what's
Hmm.
going on? It's some serious stuff, and I'm
It,
glad to
it,
be
it
part of
is.
it.
It is. But you know what really makes us human, right? Is it the emotion? Is it the feelings? And you know, artificial intelligence, artificial life, whatever they want to call it. Um, it's not quite there, right?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
pray?
I do.
Who to?
I do. God,
Okay. And do you believe that God is all knowing? Yeah.
I do.
So why would you need to communicate to him? If I know that you know what I'm gonna say, it's just between me and you. Me no have nothing to say nothing.
True, but it's a certain humility. So again, let's say you come to me using that example. Um, I know that you need food. I know. Okay. But again, do you ask for food or should you ask for food? Right. You know, I remember, so my parents are very religious also, and I use this example. So let's say you have an open field, okay, a common field, right? And two things can happen. You can pray from now till next year that corn, let's say, will miraculously grow, and then we say, hey, this is a miracle. Or you can go down to the market, right? And you can buy the corn and you can plant the corn, and then you know you're going to have corn. However, let's say you pray and you didn't buy the corn, but you pray that corn will populate in that field. Now, it's very feasible through science, right, to have a bird that has just eaten some kernel of corn or what have you fly over, defecate while they're flying over, it falls, it germinates, and you have corn, right? um, that's feasible, and that happens on a daily basis in terms of, fertilization and populations of plants and things like that. And we could say that's a miracle, or we could say that's luck. Um, but there's a joy in praying and seeing that happen, right? And I think it's just the unknowing of something like that happening, but it's very possible. But we may not associate the bird defecating and germination of that kernel, and we'll just say it's a miracle. And I prayed, and this is what happened. So again, that's faith.
It's
So
really nice when I speak to you scientists about religion because, in my humble opinion, I think what is more powerful in you guys' lives is the fact that you grew up in the church from Jamaica. And I believe that you're in a situation now where no matter what they teach you at any academic institution or what comes down, that growing up in the church in Jamaica and those life lessons from when you're so young, I think is in your DNA. And I think it's a struggle.
it's a struggle, but I think we can look at things from the scientific method, right? To explain a lot of things. Again, I would say the innocence of growing up in the church and hearing of the parting of the Red Sea, then learning science and say, well, was it the Red Sea? Was it the Reed Sea? Was it really that deep? And so just the expansion of knowledge. And so it's not, I don't think it's a matter of not being able to change your mind based on new information, but I think it's challenging that information, knowing what you knew from being younger, and then looking at the scientific evidence and just saying, well, hey, I believe this and I don't believe this. But I do think just having a reverence level to that supreme being that we call God. I think it will always be there, whether you're scientific or not. You know.
When before I got introduced to you, I never thought that you would be so complex in your thought process because I always think that military people are kind of straight down the line, and it's a real weird scenario I'm in. I speak to Oral Khan very often on a chat group, and he's a Christian and a military man, but I feel as though he's a little bit more strict. Maybe it's an age thing, I don't know, but I find that you're pretty supple and quirky with it. Scientific quirky, to be as religious as you are. So I'm trying to. It's messing with my mind at the moment. When you're going
I
through a
don't know
real
if that
tough
I don't
time,
know if that's good or bad.
no, no.
No,
I'm basically saying I have never met such a complex military guy, because I find that they're very rules based, very conservative, and down the line. But I find that you are being a scientist on top of being a military guy has given you the ability to look over the fence and say, well, hey, maybe it was the bird defecating, or maybe, Jesus didn't walk on water, it was probably an illusion, or whatever the case may be. You've opened your mind to that.
so I think so in the U.S. military. Let me take this back. So um, I also did a master's degree in strategic studies, right? And what that over that 2 year period, what it taught you was to analyze the data, right? So when you think about how wars are won or lost, right? those individuals, and we can use historical data. We can go back to, let's say, World War II, and what happened in World War II. Those who were very victorious, had to have somewhat of a nimble mind. They have to, you understand doctrine, but you don't follow doctrine off the cliff, right? You have to be flexible in your thinking and flexible in your approach to solving problems. And so those, and you mentioned, how do you rise to the top? You can rise to the top and be very stringent in your approach to solving problems. But you find that those who are open to suggestions and open to that nimbleness are the ones that really rise to the occasion. So when you think about, like I'm reading a book right now, George, General George Marshall, right? Defender of the Republic. He fired over 600 officers just before the start of World War II. And you're like, well, how do you fire 600? Well, again, he has to be very nimble in his thought process and know exactly why he did it and what the outcome would be. But there's a big strategy. So that strategy is what drives him. So again, I'm very nimble in my thought process. And you also look at all possibilities. And one of those possibilities could be true, but as long as you have the data to back that up, and then that's a data-driven decision.
In a really rough time in Paul's life, when you're having it really tough, real tough, what do you do? What do you lean on?
Who do I lean on? My wife. She has a way of simplifying the worst things. For example, my parents pretty much lost their house, right? In the hurricane Melissa, and I am here. Everyone is abroad, so it's just my parents at home. So the question is now, how do you rebuild, right? Everyone is in the same boat, right? If you need a contractor, where you're going to get that contractor? You need builders and workers, where you're going to get those workers from? And so that was very, very daunting, you know. And then again, I know what the end result should look like, or what I want the end results to be. And then it's just relationships. And so I have very, very good friends who are able to get me over those dark times, talking about your issues or your feelings, just having trusted friends. So you can have 10 friends, but of the 10, you know, one or two are the ones that really get you over that hump. And so I say, my go-to definitely is my wife, and then I have very, very good friends. I mean, really, really good friends that I can lean on and call upon.
That's great. That's great. So, if you were to if you were to be in a position of, let me say, of greatness, everything's working out for you, how would you, let me rephrase this. If you had lots of money and you had the opportunity to do something in Jamaica, what would you do?
I've always had this question, and honestly, I would say Manning's would be set. Okay, I would definitely take care of Manning's.
Why Mannings are not Unity?
I think my true foundation, right, is really what was set at Manning's more so than at Unity. And yeah, I would give Unity some, obviously, right. But I have always, I will tell you, and my wife was down here, she would tell you, if she said, Paul, what's your dream job? My dream job, right, would have been the principal or headmaster of Manning's. That would have been my dream job, right? And I even say it now, that I would definitely love to do something like that. Um,
By the way, was the house there when you were going to school?
the house,
Headmaster's house.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, it was still there. It was by the staff room,
Okay.
yeah, by his office, yeah. Um, so definitely that. Currently, I also founded and support a children's home. So I will definitely expand the children's home in Montego Bay, that I currently, you know, partly support. So yeah, lot of good things. Definitely help my community, of Deans Valley and surrounding areas. So, I've actually had those discussions with people. So that's a very interesting question.
Are you part of any Manning's alumni?
For example, all those conversations that I see with TJ, Victor Lowell. Yeah, so I'm part of that group. Definitely part of the Manning's 88 group. We were in.
Wait, that group you're talking about, me and you in the same WhatsApp group?
Oh yeah, we're in the same WhatsApp group.
All right. So so you know me
Oh,
then.
oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh yeah.
Once you mentioned TJ, that was it. I was thinking, wow, okay.
So many years ago, when I was on my way to California, I was doing a fellowship at the Rand Corporation. I stopped. My wife and I and the family actually stopped in Nevada, and just had a good time with TJ. And that was the first time I met him. But very very welcoming. We just had a great time. Went out for lunch. I think it was lunch. Great meeting. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. There was something that you mentioned, and I think you and TJ probably have studied a certain. There's something you spoke about, but I knew it was something that TJ works in something to do with environmental studies or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I knew there was some sort of link there. No, that's brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. When
hmm
you think of the future, are you hopeful?
I am. I'm optimistically hopeful. I just, not only for myself but for the younger generation. But I think that the younger generation, that there's a key component um, that they're missing in their development. I think the access to information is great, but I also think that their expectations basically too high. So there's not the developmental process that you and I probably went through. The disappointments, the coping mechanisms of disappointments, and I see it in my commands. I've had three commands. My last command was the regional commander for the Pacific, dental regional commander for the Pacific. And so going around with in the Pacific, I talk to young soldiers, and many of them do not know how to accept no, wait, or failure. Um, and that could be problematic going forward. So I think even with utilizing the technologies that we have, they need to be more, careful with that technology.
Right.
Um, yeah.
I just think that a lot of what's happening now, we're shaping our path, just depending on, we're going down this AI route, and we're aggressively going down this route. And I
hmm
think, like everything, it's like people don't realize when medicine came up against bush medicine, or when chiropractic ways of doing things came up against painkillers, people don't realize it's a decision that man made to go in one direction or another
Yeah.
makes us look at the other one as nearly ridiculous. Wherein if we had gone down that road, we would be looking at medicine in the same kind of way, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So cool, cool, cool. So my last question for you is, and it's an interesting one for me, is when we expire, what happens to us?
What happens to us? I think. Whew,
You know, I'm going to make you think about it while I'm talking. It's really nice because here you are, a learned man, scientist, disciplined, and now you're going to have to tell me about this story.
what I believe we are we are and this is faith, right? So this is the faith part, right? So if we believe in the Bible, and I use the word if we believe in the Bible, we think about it in terms of heaven or hell. Okay. Do I think there's an afterlife? Here's the problem with that question. No one has truly died and come back and said, yes, there's a heaven or hell. So it's a matter of faith, and how we live our lives, right? So if we live our lives, serving God, serving the Lord, as we would say, we are expecting a certain outcome. If we live a certain way and do bad things and murder and all of that stuff, then we expect that type of life. The way I look at it is, and if we're to live forever, okay, I think it's a fallacy to put our own current human thoughts and feelings into it, because if I put my hand in the fire, I'm going to draw it out because it burns, right? The question is, if you die and let's say you go to hell, are you feeling that same intensity or even worse, forever and ever and ever, right? And our human understanding says yes. So let's say the answer is yes. We're going to still have those nerves that's firing and we're going to feel that intensity. So therefore, what behaviors do I have to avoid to not feel that pain for eternity? And so I construct my life in such a way where, okay, I'm not going to rob, I'm not going to steal, I'm not going to murder, I'm not going to do all of this. On the flip side, you want eternal life, you want, a place flowing with milk and honey, hopefully you don't have diabetes or anything like that, right? So I'm going to construct my life that supports that long-term eternity living. So I'm going to do good, feed the hungry, take care of the poor, things like that. And I think so from a society standpoint, if we were to live our life for the latter, take care of the poor, treat each other well, believe in God. From a society standpoint, that's a better society than being afraid of murderers, killers, all of these folks. So that's a very, very interesting question. And it really comes down to your faith. I live my life in a way that I want the land of milk and honey, right? So I'm going to do those things, and by doing those things, I see that there's a fulfillment in in life. Hearing children laugh and I would tell you one of the best times I've had in 20 years, believe it or not, was when I went to the Manning's reunion. And if I could model that every single year, you know, I would. And to me, that was where you are at peace. So Interesting question. I don't know. I don't know how to
No,
to to
which is
answer that.
good, which is good because at the end of the day, a lot of us answer the question and we sound so sure, and none of us really know. Wow.
No one has gone and come back, and so it's, as I mentioned, it's a matter of faith, right? Of where you want to go.
Do you have any vices? Do you
Any
smoke?
vices?
Yeah. Do you smoke? Do you drink alcohol?
No, I don't smoke. Drink of choice would be, very simple rum and coke with grenadine. But I'm more for social. When I go to a ball or something like that.
What's your rum of
Not that.
choice?
I like Appleton. I have a couple bottles here, so every time I go, I just have bottles and bottles and bottles. So
Are we talking about like 12 year, or you don't mind the cheap stuff, the signature and the eight?
I thought Signature was good. But I don't pay attention to that. So maybe I will I'll try the stuff. But anything rum and coke, Bacardi and coke, vodka and coke, things like that. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Hey, Paul. So I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to me. I really had a good time. I think I could talk to you for ages, especially the fact that you're a religious man and a scientist at the same time.
But we
Thanks,
may
man.
have to do a part two, right? So yeah.
Most definitely. I'm trying to get TJ on as well, but he's a little bit scared of being himself. He may scare the viewing public. All right, boss. Thank you very much, Paul.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and keep up the good work.
All right, man. Cool, cool.
All right,
I'll call you
take
later,
care.
okay?
Will do.
Bye bye.
Thanks.